In a world where we are often caught up in the hustle and bustle of daily life, we sometimes forget the core values that define our humanity: kindness, sharing, and compassion. These simple qualities, though small, have the power to change someone's life. There are moments when, in a fleeting instant, an incredibly simple act can create a profound and lasting impact, both for the person performing it and for the one receiving it. So, why do we often overlook opportunities to do good? Is it because we think we are too busy, too tired, or simply because we don't realize that every act of kindness can spark a chain of significant change? The story I am about to tell is a testament to this. A moment when kindness not only changed a life, but also forged unexpected connections between two complete strangers. The story begins in a bustling market on a Monday morning. This is a place not just filled with goods, but with noise, the calls of vendors trying to attract customers, and the stories of people's lives. Amid this fast-paced environment, an elderly man made a decision that would not only change the life of a struggling mother, but would also open his eyes to a lesson about kindness and the true values of life. The protagonist in this story is John Harper, a 68-year-old man who lives alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. He has led a simple life, spending his days working at his appliance repair shop. His life had been steady, with few changes, until one day in the busy market, he encountered a young mother with two small children. This unexpected meeting would make him realize the true value of kindness, sharing, and human connection. John was not wealthy. He was an ordinary man with a simple job, but he had always believed that in this world, we can change the world with just acts of kindness. The story of John and the young mother, named Emily, would serve as a vivid testament to this. On a cool morning, as gentle sunlight filtered through the trees in the bustling market on the western side of Boston, John Harper strolled leisurely through the stalls. At 68 years old, John lived a simple life in his small home. A man who cherished quiet moments, he often visited the market early in the morning to avoid the midday crowds. John enjoyed observing and experiencing life through its small, simple details, from the fresh aroma of ripe fruits to the cheerful chatter and laughter of the vendors. That day, as John was carefully selecting plump red apples at a fruit stall, the sound of a child crying broke through the usual market noise. It wasn't the typical cry of a tantrum, but rather the desperate wail of a child who was hungry, tired, and utterly exhausted. John looked up and scanned the area, soon spotting a scene that tugged at his heart. Near the vegetable stall, a young mother was struggling to comfort her two children. The woman looked worn out, her hair hastily tied back, and her wrinkled clothes suggested she hadn't had a moment to care for herself. One arm held her crying 4-year-old son, who was screaming from hunger, while her other hand held on to her 3-year-old daughter, who clung tightly to her mother's skirt. In her shopping basket were just a few basic items: a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, and some inexpensive vegetables. It seemed as if she was carefully weighing each purchase, constrained by a limited budget. John stood silently, observing the scene for a while. He could see the worry and tension in the mother's eyes, the weight of her struggles reflected in her every movement. The children's cries continued, and the mother, despite her best efforts, seemed helpless to console them. John's heart sank. In that moment, he didn't just see a single mother battling her circumstances. He saw a reflection of his own past. Years ago, John had been a father of 2 young boys. After his wife passed away from a serious illness, John had single-handedly raised his sons. He remembered countless sleepless nights, worrying about how to afford food, pay school fees, and ensure his children had what they needed. Those memories made him feel a profound empathy for the young mother standing before him. Without a second thought, John walked over to the woman. His voice was gentle and warm as he asked, "Do you need some help?" The mother, Emily, looked up, surprised to see an elderly man with kind eyes standing in front of her. I'm fine, thank you," she replied, though her trembling voice betrayed her exhaustion. John smiled, trying to reassure her. "It's okay, I can see you're going through a tough time. Let me help you a little." Emily hesitated, her eyes reflecting a mix of doubt and vulnerability. She wasn't accustomed to accepting help from strangers, but her current situation left her with little choice. After a moment of silence, she nodded slightly, her voice soft and grateful. "Thank you. Truly, I don't know what to say." Without another word, John gently took her basket and walked toward the checkout counter. He paid for everything in her basket and even added a few extra items he thought her children might enjoy: fresh fruit, yogurt, and a box of cookies. Emily stood silently beside him, watching with a deep sense of gratitude as this stranger extended his kindness. After completing the purchase, John turned to Emily and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry too much. Things will get better. You're a good mother, I can see that. Just remember, accepting help isn't a weakness. We all need each other in life." Emily was overwhelmed, her eyes welling up with tears. She could only manage to repeat softly, thank you so much." After parting ways, John returned home, feeling a sense of lightness and contentment. He didn't dwell on his actions, believing he had simply followed what his heart had told him to do. Little did he know that this small gesture would set off a chain of unexpected events. 5 days later, John was sitting in his quiet home, reading the morning paper, when the phone rang. He picked it up, and a familiar voice came through the line. "Hello, Mr. Harper. This is Emily. I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said, her tone polite but filled with emotion. John smiled warmly. "Not at all, Emily. I'm glad you called. Is everything okay?" Emily paused briefly before speaking, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "Mr. Harper, I just wanted to thank you again. Because of you, I was able to buy enough food to feed my children for several days. But it wasn't just that. Your kindness gave me the courage to reconnect with an old friend, and with their help, I found a new job. I can't express how grateful I am to you." John was momentarily speechless, overcome with a mixture of surprise and joy. He had never imagined that such a simple act of kindness could create such a ripple effect. Emily continued, "I also took my children to see a doctor using the money I saved, and they're doing so much better now. You didn't just help us get through a tough moment. You showed me that there are still kind people in the world." John couldn't find the words to respond at first, but he felt deeply moved. He realized that his small action hadn't just brought joy to someone else, it had enriched his own soul as well. A week after their phone call, Emily invited John to her home to thank him properly. When he arrived, her children ran up to him with bright smiles, wrapping their small arms around him. "Grandpa John!" they exclaimed, their faces lit with joy. John felt an unfamiliar yet comforting warmth spread through him. That evening, they shared a simple meal together, filled with laughter and gratitude. For John, the visit was more than just a thank you. It was the beginning of a new connection. Emily and her children had become like family to him, filling a void he hadn't realized he still carried. The encounter wasn't just a moment of gratitude, but the start of a beautiful friendship between two families. Emily and John continued to support one another in their respective journeys, and her children grew up cherishing the lessons of kindness and compassion that Grandpa John had taught them. Through this experience, John discovered that small acts of kindness have the power to create profound and lasting bonds, proving that the simplest gestures can change lives in extraordinary ways. This story is a clear testament that kindness and compassion can change not just one person, but an entire family. John Harper, the elderly man, didn't overthink before taking action. He simply saw a mother struggling and decided to help without expecting anything in return. And it was this small, selfless act that brought about a profound change in Emily's life and the lives of her children. Kindness doesn't need to be grand or flashy. Sometimes, the smallest gestures are the most wonderful. Every day, we have opportunities to change someone else's life, and it's these moments that truly make life meaningful. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to follow the Life Stories 365 channel, where we share inspiring stories about compassion, perseverance, and the power of love in life. These stories not only offer deep lessons but also inspire you to reflect on the values in your own life. Hit the follow button and join us on a journey to discover fascinating stories and messages of inspiration that you can't miss. Together, let's spread good values and create positive change in this world.